Okay, I've got 3 o'clock on my clock, so I am going to chime in on another sort of last minute impromptu live card making workshop. Hi everybody and welcome on in. I am Tricia Morris coming to you from our warehouse in Neenah, Wisconsin, from Club Scrap. Now, some of you might be new to Club Scrap, so if you are new, let us know so we can give you an extra warm welcome. And if at any time during this little impromptu live, if you have questions about how Club Scrap works, just feel free to reach out to us directly if you'd like at info@clubscrap.com. We even have a phone number that people answer. And if we're not there, you can leave a message. All of those good things. No AI chatbots here on this planet, okay? So again, today I've actually sort of gotten to know a really cool little group, and let me look up the name of it. It's called Build Your Holiday Stash Card Makers, and a gal by the name of Crystal runs that group, and she helps people and facilitates people who are trying to get a head start on their holiday card making. And she developed a cute little card sketch, and so I just did what I do, and I looked at that sketch and found a way to efficiently recreate that card in larger batches. That's kind of what we do here at Club Scrap. We do batch card making. Sounds like a good match for what our holiday stash card builders are doing. So anyway, that's the plan for today. Is I'm going to share with you this little bonus free formula, and you can download this for yourself. Karen's going to be sharing a link to our blog. Once you get to that spot where the formula lives, you'll be asked for your email address. That's all. And if you're already on our email address list, put it in anyway, and you won't get duplicate emails, okay? I promise. Just add your email address and boom, you'll be able to download that formula. Okay, well, I want to switch things over here to my desktop camera so you can take your first look at the beautiful formula with my little notes, but I am gonna show you the finished cards first. So here they are, and this, I said it's batch holiday card making. So this is a batch of 6 cards. And let's see, all told, I think it took me about 35 to 45 minutes to complete the half dozen cards to this stage. And that's with both inner and outer sentiments all good to go. Okay, so I'm going to walk you through that whole process, even right down to maybe some of my stamping tips. And I want to show you what I did in about 20 minutes. I seriously finished these cards at 2:47 and I chose to go with a neutral color palette. I've done a card like this in the past. I'm going to switch cameras one more time here and show these close up to you. Okay, so here they are. Aren't they pretty? And this time, instead of, I did have my holiday stamps, our Club Scrap holiday stamps for the year, and to stamp the sentiment on the outside, but and this little pine bough. But the real singer right here is my embossing folders. So I just want to show you right out of the gates that there's a gabillion ways you can create these cards for absolutely any occasion. But this took me about 20-ish minutes to put all of these together. So that's kind of our project. And if you've never tried card making our way, I'm so excited that you're here to learn more. Okay, I'm just going to see if everyone's coming on board with us here. Okay, so I've got my formula, and right out of the gates, it says that you need to gather some materials and supplies. So, and you'll notice that there are no measurements really on the image of the card that we're going to make. Everything's shared in this formula. It's like a recipe, okay? So the recipe calls for 6 different sheets of paper. So if you can gather 6 different, that's great, but I will point out here that I only had 2 each of 3 different colors to create this neutral batch. All right, so it's really versatile. Then it says you need some envelopes, half a dozen envelopes, obviously, a paper trimmer. This is the trimmer that I use and really recommend, and you can see I've been using it for a number of years. The blade stays nice and sharp. I'm going to be using a score pal, a bone folder, some adhesive. Did I grab my bone folder? Maybe not. Some adhesive, and then stamps or cut aparts, or your embossing folders. You know, I'm sure you all have a stash of things that you can use to turn these cards into something you're going to want to send. And Karen is also sharing some of the links to the items I'm going to be using today. I'm using my stamps from the Boughs of Joy Holiday Collection. This is how they come. They're clear on a sheet, and then they have the backing, so you can just, you know, slap them onto your acrylic mounting block or your stamp positioning tool, and you're ready to stamp. And then I'm also using papers for my paper selection. Of course, I'm using Club Scrap paper from the Boughs of Joy collection as well. So, and these are all available open stock, or we even have an actual card making kit that you can grab. So, all right, I've got blue, brown, and red for the first set of trimming instructions. That's going to be this diagram on this, the first diagram, step 1. And then I have a duplex print. So this is going to be, I'll use one side and then the other, and then a gold metallic. And then if you want to stamp on a plain color, I actually grabbed a sheet of the ivory just for stamping on. So that's what we're working with today. Now I'm going to go right out, and since you're all batch card makers, or maybe you want to become one, I'm going to show you a really cool trick. In my instructions, you're going to be ending this process here with score lines to fold cards in half. But if you're making a large volume of cards, pay attention to this cool little trick. Step 1, take your 12 by 12 sheet of paper. And you want to find the grain direction, because eventually you're going to be folding this paper in half, right? And if you're folding against the grain, we all know what those folds can look like. Not very good. So to find the grain, I hold the paper by the center of an edge, give it a little wiggle, and I listen. Then rotate and look at the nearest neighboring edge. Listen, it's silent. I don't know if you could hear this. Do you hear this? Nothing. So when I put this in my trimmer, eventually, I want it to be bending left to right, but I'm going to do a fun little time-saving trick, and I'm going to grab my score pal. Okay, so with the paper, bending from left to right, like this, bending easy this way, I'll drop it in my score pal and score at 4 1/4. All right, then I'm going to set it aside, grab my sheet of brown, sheet number 2, check the grain direction, make sure it dips from left to right, score at 4 1/4. And you're thinking, what are you doing? This makes no sense. So just hang in there with me. Okay, grain direction, it dips, it's going this way, right? Left to right, the paper dips easily left to right, score at 4 1/4. And if you've never checked the grain direction of paper before, you're gonna be like, oh, that's wild. All right, I'm gonna go grab my bone folder here. Okay, so then what I'm gonna do is take that sheet of paper that I scored earlier. We're going to cut this one at 10 5/8. So that's halfway between 10 1/2 and 10 3/4 is 10 5/8. And then 8 1/2. Then rotate 11 and 5 1/2. Oh, I've got 2 card bases. Look at that. Okay, then you have your little scrap. We can set that aside. Then you have your 2 1/8 inch piece that we're going to cut in some more funky measurements. So thanks for your patience with me here this afternoon. All right, now we're going to trim at 10 1/8, 10 1/8. So that's halfway between the 10 and the 10 1/4. Then 8 1/4, 5 3/4, and 3 1/4. Now, on YouTube, you can do playback speed and switch that to like 0.75. That'll slow me down in case you want to really follow along in the future to this speed that I tend to work at. Now, the piece that's in your trimmer base right now is kind of a larger piece, but actually that's the scrap, so I'm going to set that aside. And I'm also just going to try to stay organized. I have this little accordion pocket file, so I'm going to put that underneath my trimmer base here. I'm going to take these other 4 pieces and I'm going to plop them in a pocket there so they can stay organized. This little piece here is also a scrap, believe it or not. So later on, if you would like to like die cut or do something with it, you can do that. In fact, Karen has a whole series of blog entries at Club Scrap with ideas for scraps. We have 2 more sheets that I scored earlier, and the brown and the red. We're going to stack them neatly together. so that the score line is running this way if you chose to score ahead of time. And I'm going to cut them at the same time. At this time, the correct measurement of 10 5/8 and 8 1/2. Okay, now rotate and cut at 11 and 5 1/2. Okay, magically, you just made 4 card bases that are already scored. So if you're new to this way of looking at it, I hope that you're like, whoa, that's pretty cool. Okay, this is the scored scrap. Then we have the wider piece here that I'll rotate and trim at 10 1/8. I'm going to tell you in a minute why these weird measurements. 8 1/4, 5 3/4, and 3 1/4. So 3 1/4. Remember, this is a scrap, the one that's in your trimmer. The 2 sets of rectangles, those I'm just going to set aside in a pocket here to keep them out of my way. Those are for the cards. Once again, these are strips that are scraps and can be used some other time. I'm just going to go back and tell you about how these little sketches work. I'm going to switch to my close-up just one more time here. So basically, we worked from the right going left. We started at this end. That was our first cut. Then we moved our way this way. And when I work with first-time batch card makers using these methods, a lot of times that's very confusing. So what I want to encourage you to do is just read what's written and don't look at the sketch. Just read the measurements and trim accordingly, or follow the sound of my voice. Okay, now I'm going to grab one of these text weight papers and do some other trimming. This shouldn't be too bad as far as weird numbers. And we're going to start by trimming at 7 1/2 and 4. Now notice how I always start with a larger number and then I move the paper downward. A lot of times I see people doing that in the opposite direction where they cut little pieces off of a large sheet. That's never going to give you as accurate of a cut. All right, so here we are again at 4. Rotate the piece in the trimmer and cut at 10 1/2, again the larger number. Then slide it down to 5 1/4, the smaller number. I'm going to put these in a pocket. Okay, and then this little guy is a scrap that I'll set aside. Next, the medium-sized strip here that was next to my trimmer, I'll cut at 9 1/2 and 4 3/4. I'm second guessing myself now. These 2 pieces, I'll just pop them in here so I can find them later. And you're leaving behind another little scrap. Okay. Oh, Patty, I'll see you later then. Go hang out with your grandson. That's awesome. Okay, this last piece, I'm going to trim at 11, 10, 8 1/4, 6 1/2, and 3 1/4. Now on my map of the sketch here, it says inside. So that means that these 2 pieces and the other 2 little rectangles all will be for the inside. They're completely optional. And then there's 2 narrow 1-inch pieces. Those are actually important for our card. I'm going to put them with their little friends, those little tiny rectangles we trimmed earlier. Okay, next up, I'm going to grab the 2 remaining sheets that it calls for. This would be paper E and paper F if you're keeping track. And I'm going to do these at the same time because it's the same exact trims. Okay, so 7 1/2, again, that first larger number. And you can do it one at a time, just, fast forward or rewind, and then slide her down to 4. Then rotate the piece that's in the trimmer right now. That's usually what I do, is I have you rotate and then make the horizontal cuts. So this is at 10 1/2 and 5 1/4. And then I'm just going to take these and marry them up with my other friends of a similar size. We have some little scraps. And I'm going to take this guy. This one we trim at 9 1/2. So we're making nesting panels right now. And 4 3/4. And then these are going to go with their other friends of the same size. Some scraps. Now we have this wider piece here. I'll trim at 11, 10, 8 1/4. So I've done all the math for you ahead of time. 6 1/2 and 3 1/4. Okay, so you've got these larger panels, and then you've got the two rectangles, all of them for the inside of the card. And then you have these little strips. So whether you're using any kind of an organizer like this, or you've got piles on your desk, everything's been trimmed that needs to be trimmed. But we've already completed everything mentioned in the document, so this is the bonus for hanging in there with me on the video. I'm going to show you how I cut the panels that I stamped on. So there's one panel here on the outside of the card with a really narrow reveal, and there's another panel here on the inside that I nested onto the double panel. Isn't that pretty? I love that. Okay, so for the wider panel on the inside, I decided the measurement needed to be 1 1/2 by 4 1/4. So this is how I do it. I'm going to trim a piece that's 4 1/4 inches wide. So here would be 0. If my paper is at the 12, my measurement that I'm going to get is 0. 1, 2, 3, 4 1/4. So my measurement that I need to trim at to create my 4 1/4 inch piece would be 7 3/4. Then I'm going to take that little piece that fell, and I'm going to trim them into 1 1/2 inch strips. I'm going to do the whole strip. So I just go 1 1/2. That would be 10 1/2, 9, 7 1/2, 6. I'm always just dropping the number by 1 1/2 inches. 4 1/2, 3, and 1 1/2. And this is totally optional. Like, I didn't do this on the neutral cards, but I just wanted to show you sort of the method to the madness so you can really create big batches of cards. Now, the other piece that I need is 2 3/8 by 2. Okay, well, all I'm going to do is currently my paper is at 7 3/4, so I'm going to drop it by 2 inches. 1, 2. Then I'm going to drop it by 3/8 of an inch. 1, 2, 3. That gives me a measurement of 5 3/8. Okay. The piece that fell should be 2 3/8, and it is. I'm going to turn it and cut on the even numbers. 10, 8, 6, 4, and 2. And now I've got panels that I can stamp on for this spot on a bunch of cards. 6 of them, to be exact. No more than that. 2, 2, 3. Look at that. I got 6 panels. And you still have more paper that I can work with. So again, this is how I try to get a lot of mileage out of my very treasured paper. I don't know if that's how you feel about your paper. It's how I feel about my paper. Okay, we've already done our scoring, so I'm going to get rid of my trimmer, and I'm done with the score pal, and now I've got all of my panels ready to deal. I call this part the deal. So I've got my card bases set aside over here. And for those of you who aren't confident about which side of the fold the score line goes on, just look for the bump of the score line. You can feel it. And then bury that bump inside the fold. So the indentation or the divot should be on the outside of the card. The bump of the score line should be on the inside. So I'll fold that in half. And I always check to make sure that the edges of the card base are lined up nice and neat. Never trust a score line. That's what I always say. It might be slightly off in some way. So before you make the crease, just ensure that it's lined up. And I will tell you that the score line isn't 100% necessary if you are already thinking about the grain direction. Perhaps you've been making cards for years and didn't realize that if you just prepare to be folding with the grain, you're just going to have a beautiful fold without even without even scoring, to be honest. Okay, then the deal. Okay, so we got our cards folded, and I'm going to distribute. Let's see if I can move over to my close-up cam here. I think I can do that. Got to move things around a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to distribute my card bases like so. Okay. Now I've got my little organizer. I'm calling this is my accordion pocket file, and I use it when I'm making batches of cards or batches of scrapbook pages. And I have the largest panels. So at this point you can pick what you want where. Like, I think I'm going to put this printed panel on the red cards. I'm going to put the gold panel on the brown cards and this pretty blue panel on the blue cards. Okay. Then I have a panel that's slightly smaller. So I'm going to do gold here, the other print here, maybe, and then I'll do this here. I'm going to switch these around just because I can. See, that's the fun part. I'm not even following any kind of a previous sample. I'm just distributing from the heart. Then we have these narrow strips. Now, I will point out that the formula here is vertical. So if you don't want it that way, you just do it horizontal. Or if you want the straight piece across the top, I mean, you can put these pieces on any way you wish. So I'll just flip to the side that has not yet been included on these cards. And remember those little rectangles we made earlier? There are larger ones and smaller ones. So I'm going to find the largest rectangle and put that in the upper left corner. So this card down here does not have blue, does not have red. So I'm going to add some red to it. And this doesn't have brown. So when you're working with 6 different sheets of paper, you can incorporate all of these fun colors. Every card gets its own unique color. Isn't that cool how that all just, boom, fell into place? And remember all these cute little mats we made? Those are going to be for stamping. Look at that. Okay, then what I did, remember all the things I told you could go on the inside of the card? Those are these panels. So I'm going to just lay what I plan for the inside. I'm going to scoot these over a little bit so we're on camera here. This will be my plan for the inside of these cards. And then I'm going to put that here. No, actually, I think this would be pretty here. I think I'm going to do gold here. See how I can just switch things around? And then I'm going to do gold strip with this. And this print over here. And this print over here. And then remember those 1.5 by 4 1/4 inch pieces that we cut earlier? I deal those out. I've got 2 extra. You also have the plain side in case you mess up on the stamping. And these cards are kind of all mapped out. And all I need to do at this point is my stamping. Now what I really like to do is work with some kind of a positioning tool, a stamp positioning tool. I'm going to set this just aside a little bit. So I'm going to just grab my little piece here. I gotta get you there. And then I'm going to select my sentiment, which in this case is going to be, let the season fill your heart with joy. And this is from the Boughs of Joy card, or Boughs of Joy collection. And these are the Boughs of Joy stamps. Put it on there nice and straight. Close and open. I'm using what I would call a quite antiquated ink pad that's a little on the dry side. And I went right down to the wire, so I didn't have time to go and replace or re-ink or anything. So what I'm going to do here, oh, that looks pretty good, actually, is I'm going to give it two impressions. Oh, doesn't that look good? Okay, so that'll go with that one. I'm going to do one more. And then I'm going to switch to the inside just in the interest of time. And show you kind of my final assembly process. How I can get a whole batch of cards done at this rate with so few scraps, which I really, really love. What did I do on the inside? It doesn't matter. I'm going to do Merry Christmas. So I'm going to take the innie and put it in my thing. Add my little Merry Christmas. Let's see, I'm going to do it low. Pick it up. Ink it up. Hi, Tracy. I see you're watching on Facebook. We're on Facebook and YouTube. Isn't that amazing? Ah, technology. See, I always like to give it a double stamp because it just makes it so much more rich and, I don't know, crisp. I'm going to go with the word crisp. Okay. It's like a printing press now. Okay. That's just 2, and I would just keep going, right? If you're going to make 50 Christmas cards, you can, yeah, just duplicate the formula over and over and over and over and over again. Okay, so now, let's see. Here are all the parts and pieces for one card. Now, I see a lot of different types of adhesiving, if that's a word. My favorite is this ATG glider type deal. In fact, I just at like 12:54, I ran out of adhesive as I was wrapping up those other cards. And I got all the adhesive reloaded quite readily. I also have another little thing I love to use when I'm doing this type of assembly is my grid ruler. So when I add my panels to the next panel, I like to just make sure that the piece is going to be straight. So when I add adhesive to my gold piece, it's going to be attached an 1/8 of an inch from the edge of the card. And my ruler helps make sure that that's the situation. So I just, 1 cube on my ruler is 1/8 of an inch. I don't know, do you ever have it when you think it's straight and then you walk away and come back and it's not? Happens to me all the time. So this just really helps make sure I can kick it up a notch. Then, and I would generally do this in batches as well. I would do 6 at a time. And then here we've got, this is going to be 1/4 of an inch margin. So I've done all that math. So this is going to line up perfectly on my mat, my panel. Then I'm just going to take a big risk and eyeball this at 1/8 of an inch. Oh, that's so pretty. For the inside, I'll add my Merry Christmas to this mat. And you know, one of the things about following sketches, and I absolutely love doing that, but if you just cut one panel size from one sheet of paper and scrap the rest and save it for later, and then you just later never comes, this way, all of your pieces are used and you have a very small pile of scraps that you can, you know, of course turn into something, or you don't have to feel guilty about not turning it into something. Isn't that a lovely card? But it could use a little something. I've got options. From this collection too, we have these really sweet, I don't think I have scissors. I'm going to quick grab scissors and open this up just to show you that we have, I try to find low dimension embellishments. These sweet little metallic holly leaves are adorable. I could add that. Oh, that's really nice. I like it. Or we have these custom made wax seals. You just grab the backing off and add him to your card. Oh, isn't that sweet? Ready to mail. All you need is the envelope. And we carry those too. In fact, all of our card kits come with envelopes in the correct size so that when your cards are done, you can send them out. So just to review, here I've got my finished cards. And I only had a 4-pack of the holly leaves. So that's what I added here. You can say I also added a little stamping, a little bit of artwork, and 2 sentiments on the inside. Here I added the wax seal. Aren't they pretty? And then on the other ones, just to prove it can be done, they're vertical. But then I forgot they were vertical when I stamped the inside because, you know, mind you, I was rushing. So I just trimmed down the nested pieces to fit on the inside of the card. And this is ivory. This is the toile gray. I believe it's gray and white. And also the Boughs of Joy stamp sheet. Aren't they pretty? Just with that embossing. So what I did was added the square, or all the rectangles onto the panel, and then ran it through the embossing machine and then nested it after that. So what I want to also explain is why we had to do those weird measurements. So when you're looking at a card like this, anytime you have two panels spread across one panel, it creates this extra 1/8 inch area between them so that all of your margins are going to be aligned. That's why we had to trim this at such an odd measurement, is to compensate for this space right here. That's why this to here equals this to here minus 1/8. This plus this will equal this. You know what you could do? Just let me do the math. I got you covered. Right? I got you covered with all the math. And I'm back. What'd you think? I can't look at the camera and read comments at the same time, but I will go back and read your comments. And I'm just so grateful you came and joined me for this little spontaneous card making adventure. And I also want to just extend a warm hello to our holiday card Build Your Stash Holiday Card Makers group. How did I do? I'm so glad. I'm so glad you came and found us, and I hope you'll download that formula and give it a try. We released another formula. This one I'm calling the triple block formula because there's 3 blocks. I have a double block formula because there's 2 blocks. And the last time I released it, I couldn't believe how many people made it and posted what they made. It was absolutely, that was wonderful. I loved it. I love to see all the creativity, all of the paper stashes being used that are then languishing and piling up, not being loved, not being used. Do you happen to have a stash of paper? If you do, give this formula a try. You know, right now, you have everything you need probably on hand to get rid of half a dozen sheets of paper to make 6 really gorgeous triple block cards. And also, if you like to make cards by the batch, I just want to quickly mention we do have a monthly card club where I create a map. It's a card map. You cut just like this. What we did, we trim, we score, we assemble, and we do 4 each of 3 card styles. And a lot of times I try to teach something kinetic or fun, or maybe we'll make a gift box, all kinds of fun things. So come and join us for the Club Scrap Card Kit. It's only $27.95 a month for members, 12 cards and 12 envelopes, plus the video workshop. Super fun. All right, I think I'm going to head home now because it's been a day. So thank you all again for joining me. Thank you to Karen for staying late to monitor the chat, and for Julie and her creativity and connection with Crystal. It's so great to meet you. So thanks again for stopping by, and make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss any more of our fun lives. See you next time.